I really would like us to just have a conversation focusing more on telling the whole truth. Because even as campaigning activists, we tend sometimes to focus on only what we see as our part of the truth. And we expect that that is all that everybody else should be seeing. And so, when some of us came from the Stop the Maangamizi, We Charge Genocide, Ecocide campaign, a long, ongoing Pan-Afrikan campaign rooted within the African heritage communities to work with Extinction Rebellion. There was a view that what was narrowly defined as a climate and ecological crisis was the most important thing for everybody to focus upon, and that raising issues of racial injustice and social justice were actually very problematic for campaigning on the climate and ecological crisis. And it took quite some time of working, critical exchanges within Extinction Rebellion to get, I would say, a growing majority section of the movement, I wouldn't say everybody, to begin to see the interconnections between the climate and ecological crisis, and to see that very much as part of the global crisis of a system we can identify as not only capitalism, but imperialism manifesting itself as coloniality in the form of neo-colonialism in various parts of the global south, particularly Africa, where I come from originally. And I think that where Extinction Rebellion is going now needs to be seriously appreciated. Okay, yeah? Needs to be seriously appreciated. Because as difficult as it has been, as challenging as it has been for those who originated Extinction Rebellion, they are beginning to set an example for many of the campaigning formations in this country. Because since I came into this country as a political refugee in 1990, I've tried working with a wide range of formations, campaigning formations, a number of mainstream political parties, even though I never really joined any one of them. And it has been very, very difficult to get serious understanding of what the whole truth is. And when we talk, particularly those of us who are Africans, about the relevance of Afrophobic racism to the battles against racism, stand up to racism and its predecessors like the National Assembly Against Racism and Anti-Racist Alliance found that very difficult to grasp. It was not so difficult to grasp the racism of anti-Semitism, not so difficult to grasp the racism of Islamophobia. But when we raise the issues of Afrophobic racism, that has been very, very difficult for the so-called anti-racist movement in this country to grasp. But Africans were amongst the very first people racialized as non-human, subjected to chattel enslavement, denied the right to govern ourselves, and up till today, the flag and anthem independence proclaimed in our parts of the world has not taken away the power of white supremacy racism in determining what happens in our parts of the world. Racism is very much alive all over the continent of Africa and throughout the global south because we are still subjected to white supremacy racist misrule. The entire continent of Africa, in terms of the nation states that exist, are not ours. Our indigenous nations have been, torn apart and divided by the borders drawn in 1884, 1885 at the Berlin Conference. And that pits us against each other because people can manipulate the strings and misuse the puppets who are the only ones who can last in governance. Because London says so, New York, Washington says so, Paris says so, Lisbon says so. And so the people who can govern are those who are trained in these institutions of Eurocentric miseducation to carry out the coloniality of power under instructions from their bosses in these parts of the world. And that is why the criminality of the Niger Delta can be happening. Because the people who were handed Nigeria fabricated by Lord Lugard on behalf of Britain have made sure that it continues to be run to suit the multinational companies like Shell. The same thing is happening in Ghana, where our gold and diamonds are open to to initially, what is now called the Anglo Gold Ashanti, and you think it has something to do with Asante. No. So, this is the reality of the world in which we live in. And that is why we must embrace the whole truth. Seek, and that is not an easy thing to do. We have to work with each other patiently, hear each other's stories, be prepared to interrogate the parts of the truth each of us holds in order to piece it all together as a jigsaw puzzle. And that is the real challenge we face. Do we have the courage enough to hear each other's story, to feel each other's pain, to empathize, and then turn that into the power to make change happen by our own selves, not just calling on governments to make change. These governments will never make change. Change has never come from the top. It has come from below. And until we build the power from below to compel change, it's not going to happen. And my last point, I'm addressing it to my colleagues of Black Lives Matter. I call myself a critical friend of Black Lives Matter. But because there are issues that need to be raised. For example, yes, Black Lives Matter can only happen when all lives matter. That's a fact, right? And we cannot counterpose Black Lives Matter to the fact that the life of each and every being, not just even human lives, must matter, right? And I'm saying, why is it that when, yes, a black life gets lost in the United States, we can have global protests are lost in those kinds of protests? Why? Why is it that black youth in the global north can rush out into the streets when particularly, children go down into the mines in DRC Congo to bring out the cobalt you have in your mobile phones, which you can't believe even for a second, young people in this country. Where are you going out on the streets, to ensure that those lives of these children in the mines in Congo also matter to you? So the hypocrisy must stop. And I am an African and black, I can make those criticisms. Why is it that we are not getting you running around ensuring that the military bases of the United States of America, which also employs black soldiers, are taking off our lands? Because a lot of lives are being lost to American aggression across Africa and across the world. So if we want to make black lives truly to matter, let's rally around the whole truth. And it is in that resistance to make each and every life matter that we will see true justice and emancipate ourselves. I come from a people, in our every language we say, Yatape de Kakweli. In the Tree language of Akan, it says, and there is only one whole truth. And to free ourselves, we must unify around the whole truth. Thank you.